Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Watched by Ashley. Thank you so much for joining me. This is where we get to take a look and discuss some of the big releases for the major streaming platforms. And today we're going to be taking a look at Warner Brothers' Black Adam. So this is still in theaters, but in a couple of weeks you can check it out on HBO Max. So let's get into it. This movie is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's baby. Like, he's been working on this project for a long time. Like, I think about 15 years of development has been put into this movie. And at times it definitely does feel like it's a movie that's 15 years ago, because there are some kind of tropes and things in the movie that are very reminiscent of an older superhero movie. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And unfortunately, I might be alone in that feeling, because this movie has not performed very well in theaters. Like, Warner Brothers gave them a budget of nearly $200 million, and the box office performance has not been great. They've made less than $400 million with this movie so far. And for it to be considered break-even territory, they needed about $500 million. So they're definitely still way off the mark, and a lot of people might be scratching their heads because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a superstar. So what could have possibly gone wrong, right? There's a lot of things that went wrong here, in terms of the fact that I think fans are really scarred by DC and just the terrible releases that they've had, right? Like, you think of Suicide Squad, you think of Wonder Woman 1984, like, they've been very inconsistent with their films. Like, they have some good films and they have a lot of bad films. So I think people are just really tired of the roller coaster that DC's put them on. And DC has a lot to figure out. Like, right now we have 2 different Batman and 3 different Jokers. So, like, how are you going to get invested in these characters, right? In terms of performance from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's okay, right? And maybe another reason why this film hasn't done phenomenally well. To be honest, when The Rock does performances, especially the last, maybe like, actually since always, his performances kind of are the same throughout. Like, when you're casting The Rock, you're almost casting more so for his body than his actual performance. So yes, he looks like Black Adam, and yes, he does physically capture that character, and that's great. You're not looking for an award-worthy performance from The Rock here, and you definitely don't get it. So I would just say his performance was all right. Another aspect of why this film may not perform so well is because it's very simple. It's not a complicated movie. This film is very heavy on the action, and it's very light on the exposition. So we're introduced to not only Black Adam, but we're also introduced to Justice Society of America, and we're not really given a lot of background on those characters. We're given the bare bones in terms of Black Adam's story. Like, we know kind of where he came from and what made his existence necessary, but we're not given too much more. And I really liked that. They kept it pretty straightforward, and I appreciated that. And then when you have the introduction of Hawkman and Dr. Fate, they're already fleshed out in this universe. They already exist. We're not given like background on them. We're not given a montage of them discovering their powers. I like that. Like, I like the mystery of who these characters are, because it kept me wanting more. So I hope that they continue with these characters, but we'll have to see, especially after that performance. I think the director, Jaume Collet-Serra, did a pretty great job with the film. There are some beautiful scenes here. I really love the way they captured Hawkman and his wings. Like, another thing that I felt sometimes watching this movie is that it was a Zack Snyder production, because there's just so much saturation in some of the scenes and colors. I like that style, so it was more up my alley. The story is very simple, but again, that most origin story movies are simple. And the one thing that I think is probably different than modern day movies that they're comparing them to is there isn't any political message that's being pushed upon you in this film. There isn't any wokeness here. So if that's what you're looking for in a movie, you're not going to get that here. And that might be for you or not for you, but I personally enjoyed that. I think this film does a very good job in terms of being a form of escapism, which is kind of what these movies started out as, right? Like, when you think about 10-15 years ago and you have the original Spider-Man trilogy, or you have the Daredevil movie, or X-Men, like, these movies were just about the comic book characters and telling their stories. It wasn't about putting different agendas in there. And so this movie follows suit with that. And I think it could be more enjoyable for a wider audience for that reason. If I was to rate this film, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a great hour and a half. But that's where I'll leave it here in terms of spoiler free. To get more into it, I'll go into spoilers now in terms of things I liked and didn't like. I think it's a really stupid idea to kill Dr. Fate off when Pierce Brosnan gave probably the strongest performance in the film. with the little screen time his character had, he is almost like a scene stealer because his Dr. Fate was awesome. I like the fact that he was fleshed out, and I love the way the character looked. It really captured the way this character is presented in media, whether that be in comic or in television shows or even in the Injustice game. Like, I felt like they really captured Dr. Fate extremely well. I know that he's very similar to Doctor Strange, but for some reason, I just felt like his presentation was just a lot better and stronger. Hawkman was also a very pleasant surprise. Aldis Hodge as Hawkman was pretty awesome too. Like, I love the way they designed this character. I thought he looked awesome. I just love the gold and the way his wings were. Like, I thought that was fantastic. Even the character himself, like, again, he's already established, obviously has money behind him, and he has a lot of technology, and he's just very confident and strong. But they also piqued my interest because I would love to see like a spin-off series of this character and get to know him a bit better, because it's very mysterious. I don't know a lot about Hawkman, and now I want to know more about him. Also, I did enjoy seeing Henry Cavill. I thought that was a really nice touch. I really hope that by seeing him in the post-credit scene, he'll be more prominent in the DCEU and we get a couple more movies out of him, because he's really given his best shot, and I think that he deserves another chance. I don't think ending Superman or Henry Cavill after Justice League is really fair. So really keep my fingers crossed for that. In terms of cons for the movie, I would say maybe some of the CGI is a little bit off and the pacing is a little bit wonky at some points, but that's because there's just so much action in the movie that I think editing around it, they kind of cut the movie up a little bit too much, but when you're trying to keep the runtime down, I think that can't be helped. I do wish it was an R-rated film. I think that they missed out an opportunity there. Like, they could have had it be a bit more gory, or show like Black Adam being really, really menacing. I think that would have been cool, because the way they presented, especially in the trailer, is that Black Adam was just like this evil guy who had all these powers and no one can control him or contain him. And you didn't really see like the evilness of Black Adam. Like, yes, he didn't care for the preservation of life, and if you crossed him, he would kill you. But it wasn't like malicious or like horrible, or like this guy's a really scheming, terrible dirtbag. That's what I was hoping for, is like some gore and some raunchiness, and like, wow, this guy's like crazy, like he's horrible. That's what I was hoping to see. And they gave you like almost like a glimmer of that, like it could have gone in that direction, especially when the opening scene where he like electrocutes the flesh off of a skeleton and then crushes the skeleton. I would have wanted more of that. And it's not to say Warner Brothers doesn't like have the vision and the minds for that, because they own the company that makes Mortal Kombat, and you've seen some of the brutalities there. Like, that's what I wanted, like more of those finishers, right? Like, that would have been pretty cool. And especially because they already, with the CGI, they already make it feel like a video game that you're watching. So like, just go one step further and give us a bit more of what we've seen in the games, and I think that would have been pretty cool. Another aspect of missed opportunities is it would have been interesting if they tied it in a little bit to Shazam, because they are of the same kind of branch, but they didn't do that, so that was unfortunate. But overall, like I said, I think this film has been unfairly viewed by the critics and panned, and I think it's really unfortunate it didn't make the money. Hopefully when it gets onto streaming on HBO Max, it really picks up in terms of viewership, and it reinforces them to continue with the character. It would be a shame to just make this Black Adam movie and then they don't come back at all for anything else. Because who knows, like, I mean, I'm sure that they've approved a second movie or some kind of sequel, but if The Rock doesn't feel it, he just won't do it, right? So I really do hope that they continue. I would like to see more of these characters. Like I said, I'd love to see a mini series of Hawkman to get his origin, what kind of direction they're going in for this character. So those are my thoughts in regards to Black Adam. Let me know if you've seen the film. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Are you one of those people who think it's like the worst release that DC's ever had? Or what direction do you think DC should go in next? Like, what's another character that DC should expand upon? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but that's all I have for you today. So if you watched up to this point, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy the content that you're seeing here, please give me a like and subscribe, as it will help me grow the channel, and I really, truly do appreciate that. So until next time, take care. Bye.